Today's guest went from trying to flip one house to building a business that generated over $20 million in gross revenue a year. That's right. We sit down with Brandon Rickman, who is known as the Flip Genius, and he shares how he and his wife scaled their flipping business to doing 100 flips a year, and how from there they started to scale into multifamily, self-storage, and private lending. If you're looking to scale your real estate portfolio, Brandon and I talk about all sorts of different strategies. So this is a conversation you want to check out. It's right here on Multifamily Insights. You probably got interested in real estate for the cash flow, the tax advantages, the equity appreciation, and the long-term wealth creation, not for the 2 a.m. emergency maintenance calls. But let's face it, maintenance can be the biggest headache when it comes to building up your real estate portfolio. And that's why I want to tell you about a new property management software called Hemlane. See, Hemlane is more than your typical software. It's really like having a property management support system. First, Hemlane provides 24/7 repair coordination. They have a network of vetted maintenance technicians and professionals in your area to handle repair and maintenance your property may need. Second, Hemlane helps you advertise your listings and even connects you to licensed agents to help find and place tenants. And third, Hemlane is ranked #1 by Gartner with an average of 4.8 star reviews on repair coordination. Learn how Hemlane can help you manage your properties with 100% transparency and control without the administrative work. And as a Multifamily Insights listener, you will receive 25% off for 2 months when you sign up. Just go to hemlane.com, that's HEMLANE.com, and use Multifamily Podcast 25 as the promo code. Again, that's hemlane.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Brandon has flipped over 500 houses and has owned both short-term and long-term rentals. He has raised private money for multiple projects and owns a private lending business. Now, Brandon is currently developing a 3-story, A-class self-storage facility just outside of Atlanta. Let's welcome to the show, Brandon Rickman.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Brandon, great to have you on. Hey, listen, I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 60 seconds and give our listeners a little bit more context on your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first house we ever did, I had a full-time job. My wife had a full-time job. She was a school teacher. And I grew up kind of around construction. My dad was a builder. And so my brother and I, summers and weekends, we would go clean up projects he was working on and kind of learn from the ground up. So when my wife and I were working and we wanted to earn a little extra money, we said, well, let's see if we can find a house to flip. So we found a house in the neighborhood that we lived in, and it was all dilapidated, run down. We went and knocked on their door and, found out the information. We ended up making them an offer. Made a lot of mistakes on that first deal, but she and I did most of the work ourselves. So it cost way more money and took way more time than it should have. But we ended up selling it and making a little bit of money and saying, wow, this is pretty good. Let's go try to find another one. So we started out very small, just doing a house, maybe 2 per year the first couple of years. And then as inventory was available, we educated ourselves, got a mentor and a coach from, somebody who's been there and done it, and kind of learned more about outbound marketing. How do we find more properties? And eventually scaled that up to where we're doing 100 houses a year, which is massive. But we never had the vision or the idea of, oh, gee, let's build this big real estate company. It was just kind of, it worked. So let's keep doing it. We both enjoyed it. And grew it from there. And then, as you mentioned, now we're developing self-storage facilities.
Yeah, Brandon, I appreciate you sharing that background. You mentioned your wife was a school teacher. You were kind of grew up around construction, but both of you guys had full-time jobs. And at some point you decided, you know what, why don't we try this investing thing? Let's go buy a house and let's flip it. Found a house in your neighborhood, bought it, and ended up working on it yourselves, made some mistakes, took a lot of time to get it done. But you went through that process and it was good enough where you decided, let's figure out how to do this the right way now. So you educated yourself, got a mentor, and through that, you learned more about outbound marketing, different strategies, and you ended up scaling that into a business where you're doing 100 flips a year, right? So let's talk about that, because I think there are a couple of big inflection points in what I heard in your story. First of all, when you did that first flip, what was the spark? I mean, was it something going on in the career? Was it just boredom? Like, what was the spark to say, you know what, we should buy a flip project?
Yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur. I was the kid who had the lemonade stand on the corner and actually got in trouble at school when I was in middle school because we'd go to Costco, buy these giant tubs of blow pops, and then go sell them at school for a quarter a piece or whatever. And our principal didn't like us making money off our friends selling blow pops, but just kind of always had that entrepreneurial bug. And I loved real estate. Growing up around construction and real estate, I was around it all the time. I think I've learned as I've gotten older the part that I like both with building new houses, which we've done a lot of as well, but new construction and rehabbing is I love the seeing something that's broken down, dilapidated, or non-existent, and then putting in, having a vision for it, putting in the work, and seeing the end result. And at the end of the day, somebody comes in and buys that house and they love it. Everything's brand new, and so I think it's just the creative process that I really love with real estate. And obviously, there's a lot of different avenues in real estate that you can be involved with. But I love the creative part. Always been an entrepreneur, and I knew a little. I had a background in construction and real estate, so it seemed like the best place to start.
But so you had that entrepreneur spirit. It's funny you mentioned the blow pop thing, right? Uh, I have a very similar story, but we did not go to Costco to get mine. So my margins could have been bigger when as an adult. I'm looking back like, man, I could have made a lot more money in third grade. But I bought the 10-cent blow pops, from the corner store, which is right outside the school, by the way. And I would buy as many as I could. I'd go into school, sell them for 25 cents, just like you. I got in trouble. And I remember my mom when they called my mom and told me told her what I was doing. Um, she didn't get as upset as I fully anticipated. My mom was a very strict disciplinarian, and I didn't get yelled at. She just told me, hey, you can't do that at school. And I was like, huh. And I think she asked them how much money I made, and she was shocked that I was over here hustling like this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny when you think back, like that's something I didn't think about a lot as an adult, right? But then you really start to get into these stories like, oh, I guess I was like that as a kid too.
Yeah.
I want to go to that point though, because you had that entrepreneur bug. What sparked that first investment though? Did you see the house and said, hey, this is an idea? Or is there something else that triggered you to get over that hump of maybe being interested and curious to say, let's do it?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I both were, trying to save money. We're both making enough to pay the bills, and it was kind of paycheck to paycheck. And so, it's like, how can we get out of the rat race? How can we do something more? We don't want to do this for the rest of our lives. I didn't like the 9 to 5. I didn't like someone else telling me what time to be there, what time I needed to leave. I wanted to have my own schedule, and I wanted flexibility and autonomy in my schedule so that I could pick what I do each day. And so that was really the cause. She
Yeah.
actually stayed working as a teacher after we started the real estate business and had done a few projects. I quit my job. She stayed working as a teacher, so we'd continue to have her salary and insurance while I started the real estate business. And then eventually she quit. So it was a desire for something more. It was a desire to quit the 9 to 5. And so we saved up a little bit of money at that time. We didn't know anything about any kind of alternative lending. All we knew was bank financing. And so we would go to the bank and say, we found this house. Here's how much it is. How much can we borrow? And then, we have this much cash. What else do we need? And so it was kind of in the early days, it was scramble. We call it street fighting back then. It's like, do whatever you got to do to come up with the means to make it happen. So I think it was the desire. It was the discomfort of being employed and working 40 to 50 hours a week and still only being able to live paycheck to paycheck and pay our bills, never getting ahead. So the discomfort of that, and also the dream and the desire of freedom and flexibility, time freedom, financial freedom, that really drove us to, hey, let's figure this out.
And Brandon, I think it's important for everyone to understand, right? Because you mentioned your wife multiple times, and it's really important too when you're investing as a couple, because you both have to be on the same page. And my wife was definitely heavily involved when we first started our business. And the question we would get all the time is like, how did you get your wife on board? And I'm like, I didn't have to get her on board.
Yeah.
Like we were on board together. And it's a nuance in what you said. I'm bringing this up, so I want to make sure people don't miss it. You all were clear in the lifestyle you were looking to create. You had these conversations. So when you got to the vehicle, it was less of a discussion about, should we be investing? Should we be flipping? It was like, hey, here's the lifestyle we talked about creating. We want to be less reliant on our job. We want more time, flexibility. We want more cash flow. What are our options? Real estate became an option. flipping became the first tactic that you looked at. And if you are going through this thing and you know real estate can help you, but you got a spouse or a partner who's not quite on the same page, it's probably because you haven't done the groundwork to talk about the life you want to create together, to talk about, who's working, who's not working. Is one of us going to quit our job? Do we both want to be independent? Like, do we even want financial independence? Some people see jobs as stable. Like they would see, you leaving your job as, risky. So you have to have these conversations before you can even get to the real estate. I think too often people just, they jump, they hear guys like you and I talk and they jump to, oh, I want to invest, I want to do this, but they haven't got their partner on board. And now you got a lot of pressure on yourself because you got to win because this partner didn't necessarily sign up for this ride with you. And as you know, those first couple deals when you have zero experience are going to be the hardest. So definitely making sure you're on the same page is absolutely vital. Let's fast forward your story a little bit, right? So you talked about the flipping, you got the mentor, you started to scale. Talk to us about maybe one or two things that were absolutely key and critical and maybe even surprising for you on strategies or tactics that you implemented to help you scale to get to the point where you were doing 100 flips a year.
Yeah, I would say the first thing was, like I mentioned, having a mentor. And so we were flipping. I was doing it full time. My wife was able to quit teaching and then get a real estate license. So we were working together. I loved what you said about having her on board as well. We're I tell people she's the co-CEO. So we're working together on every deal. We've been married now 24 years, and it's been great. So that is a huge part of being an entrepreneur, is having a supportive spouse or partner, because it's difficult and there's a lot of ups and downs. We've been in it for 20 something years now. So we've been up and down the real estate market as it's turned, and there's some difficult times in there as well. So, agree 100% with having somebody there to support you and be on board is huge. Specific. I had a friend of mine who was flipping a ton of houses. And he brought me on board with his company to run his acquisitions department. And so I started working with him, started doing acquisitions, and then eventually hired and trained other acquisition people to kind of take my place. And that was the first time where I really saw a vision for a bigger scale company. He was doing over 100 houses a year. And I was like, wow, I've never had this vision. Again, I was doing a couple deals a year, enough that I was able to quit my job and my wife was able to quit hers, but still wasn't massive until I had this mentor, this friend who kind of brought me under his wing and showed me the ability, the possibility that was out there. And so kind of learned from him. We had 15 people on our staff to do that much volume. And, it was a major machine. It was a full-time, obviously multiple full-time business at that time. So having a mentor that kind of helped coach me through the process was the first thing. I think the other thing was just understanding all of the different avenues for outbound marketing. When you're doing that many deals, and I know a lot of people who do this in multifamily and self-storage as well, how are you going to find the properties that you can make offers on? Where do those leads come from? And so for us, you can buy stuff on the MLS or certainly CoStar and stuff for the commercial and multifamily world. But usually by the time an agent gets the property, they understand the value, they've marked it up. And so we always wanted to deal directly with the seller. And so really learning the different avenues for outbound marketing to find properties before they got listed. So off-market properties, that was another thing that was huge for us. And we did direct mail, which has always been our number one marketing technique for multifamily, self-storage, and single family, really. But direct mail, cold calling and texting, pay-per-click, paper lead was another avenue. Back then, we did bandit signs as well. We don't do those anymore, but a lot of different outbound marketing techniques. And so I would say those two things are the two most important things to scaling. Was one, having a mentor, somebody who's been there and done it and can help me avoid the mistakes that I'm going to make trying to do it on my own. And two was learning and understanding, how do you find the properties before they hit the market?
Brandon, a couple things stand out to me. We talk a lot about mentorship here. We have kind of our mentorship program as well. We actually have a group mastermind, which people can check out. You go to casmoncapital.com/mastermind. And in that mastermind, we talk a lot about the different strategies to scale your portfolio. And one of the things that I find is so intriguing is you really have to plant that seed, and it's not so much when we talk about mentors, it's not this guru thing. What it really is you have to believe that this bigger opportunity is available for you. Like we know people are out there doing big deals, right? But those are strangers, right? Like you don't know us like that, right? This is just some dude who's talking on a podcast when you're listening, or a guy you're talking about in a book, or a dude on a video. You don't necessarily see it as you. And that mentor humanizes it, and it makes it much closer where you can learn. And for you, like you said, you got to go work with your buddy. You obviously knew he was doing well, but maybe you didn't think about the opportunity until you got to see the inner workings of it. And when you're inside of it, now you're not necessarily asking the questions of, oh, I don't know. You're seeing it, and you're seeing that there's nothing crazy special that I can't do, right? It's just systems and processes. It's just understanding it and understanding how this lever impacts this thing over here. And once you learn that, you can scale and grow. And that is why mentorship is so critical, especially in commercial real estate. You were already doing your own deals. That's what I want people to understand. You were already doing your own deals. You could have said, I don't need a mentor. What are you talking about?
Right.
I'm already successfully flipping properties. But you were limiting your capacity by not surrounding yourself with someone playing the game at a bigger level. And that's why the most successful people have mentors. They have coaches because they recognize that they can do more. And by surrounding yourself with the right people, those doors open up. So you did that. You focused on your outbound marketing strategies. You talked about direct mail, cold calling, texting, pay-per-click. You were doing bandit signs in the beginning as well, but you've expanded your business and now you're able to generate a lot of revenue, hiring 15 people to run the operations. Hey, just out of curiosity, what kind of revenue were you doing a year where you're flipping 100 houses?
Oh, gross revenue.
Yeah, just gross revenue.
20 million.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back exactly. I'll remember it exactly.
Did you imagine when you and your wife were working your full-time job and she was a school teacher, did you imagine having a $20 million gross revenue business?
Nah, not at all. And again, like you just mentioned, that having the mentor thing was huge because you don't know what you don't know. And so while I'm doing, as an example, and I think this will be valuable for anybody out there who is thinking about, or what should I do? What are my next steps? Yeah, that sounds great. You've done over 100 houses a year. So that's fine for you. But for me, it's not that easy. The reality is we also started very small and did one deal at a time. And having this mentor as an example. So I had a piece of paper, a notebook paper, and I would ride around driving for dollars, look for a house, write down the address, write down the phone number, call them. And, when you're doing a couple houses a year, that's one thing. But then my mentor said, well, you need to get a CRM. I said, I don't even know what CRM stands for. He's like, okay, it stands for customer relationship management. So it's software, basically, CRM. And there's a bunch of them out there. But he said, here's one that's specifically focused on real estate. And it's free, and it's basically a place where you can store all your leads. So when you're doing that many deals, you need a place that you can keep up with it. The spreadsheet and the notebook don't work anymore, because you have too many leads coming in if you're going to do that many houses. And so I didn't know anything about a CRM. He taught me about a CRM so that when we left and started doing it back on our own, when I left working with him, now we knew what a CRM was. And there's a lot of different things like that if you've never done it before, you don't know about call rail or, call recording software or outbound dialers, multi-line dialers. You have no idea, but all of those things you learn from other people who have done it, been there and are where you want to get to. So I think that was huge for us, for sure.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Brandon. Hey, let's transition, right? Many of our listeners are more focused on multifamily and don't want to flip for a lot of different reasons, right? You started to scale up. I know you made that transition. Why did you decide to transition into more multifamily and commercial real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that I realized is both the things that I was doing, new construction and flipping houses, were what I consider transactional businesses. So as an example, you find a lot, you build a house, you sell it, you make $50,000, $70,000, $80,000. That's great. Well, guess what? You got to go find another lot to build another house. Same thing with flipping houses. You go find the dilapidated house, you remodel it, you sell it, you make good money. You got to go find another house. So you're always on that hamster wheel. You're always having to do marketing. If you stop marketing, you have no more inventory. And so I realized after doing this for years, and it provided good income, but at the same time, I wasn't building anything for the future. There was no what I call generational wealth. I have a 15-year-old son now who we're teaching the business, but I want something that we can pass on to him, teach him how to run the business if he's interested, and pass it on for generations to come. And so I started looking at that, and Although single family homes can provide that, it's much more difficult because you're making $100, $200 per house per month. And then the HVAC goes out and you got to replace it while you're not making any money. So really that becomes an appreciation game, right? Like you're going to buy a house and hope it appreciates over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to have the appreciation when you sell it. And it was just not we had a bunch of rental properties and it was just a slow moving game. We weren't really building the generational wealth that we wanted to. So started looking at multifamily and self-storage and said, okay, what's something that we can spend more time and more money on up front, more due diligence, might take a little bit longer. But once we implement it, once we put it in place and get the asset in place, or at least the investment in place, it continues to pay us month after month after month for as long as we own the asset. And so that was the reasoning behind it. We wanted to do something that generated more generational wealth and wasn't such a transactional business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? You want to do that. You didn't get into tax benefits, but there's tax advantages of doing that as well. But now you're not necessarily chasing a deal every year because once you sell, you got no equity and you're going to run out at some point. So you now have this property where you're building up these assets, you're building up equity, you're now focusing more on generational wealth. And that is one of the reasons people want that, right? You're trying to make that transition where it could be more passive. And that's kind of the portfolio you're building now. Speaking of that, I know you do some private lending. So you're in private lending, multifamily, self-storage. Talk to me at a high level, like how do you approach investing today?
That's a good question. So we are involved in a lot of different things, like you said, and it's kind of come again. It's not something like yesterday we just decided, hey, let's be involved in these 5 different things, right? It came over time, and it was really based on a need for us when we were growing our single family flipping business. We realized that there was a gap in the funding. How do we fund more deals, even if we had some of our cash? If you're doing 8, 9, 10 flips at a time, that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So we decided there's a gap. Let's figure out how we can fill that gap with lending. And we started lending out some of our own money, eventually created a fund, and now we have the private lending business. So, we have certainly have the private lending business, which is generating income for us. We invested our own capital into that. So that's an avenue. We still have our flipping business, which is still going on. So that's an avenue that we invest in that returns. We did some long-term and short-term rentals. Now we have the self-storage facility that we're developing. So for us, one of the things that I've learned over the 20 plus years that we've been in real estate is that you have to be resilient and you have to be willing to change your strategy. So at some points, multifamily is great and rentals are great and it's a great thing to invest in. And other times self-storage is great, or, flipping is great, or buying rental properties, single family homes. So over the years, we've been through a lot of ups and downs with the market. And what I've realized is that sometimes something is doing really well and other things aren't, and vice versa. So really building out a strategy to invest in 4 or 5 or 6 different things so that we have income potential from all those different things. That way, if one of them goes down, the other ones are still doing okay. And so we still have income from those different businesses or different investments, whether it's, investing in a fund or investing in a syndication as an LP, as a limited partner, or in our self-storage situation where we're the lead GP, general partner. Those are all different investment opportunities. I would say too, though, if I had a full-time job, if my wife and I were still working and didn't have the time and the flexibility to do those things, but we had the capital, figuring out which asset class you're interested in, multifamily and self-storage, obviously both you and I are interested in, and for a lot of different reasons, but there's opportunities for people to invest, even if they have a full-time job and they're not looking to be a full-time investor. They just want to, make more than their 2 or 3 or 4% they're making in the mutual fund or stock market. They can invest it into a syndication or to a fund and make, 10, 8, 10, 11% return. And oftentimes, if they're in a deal that sells in a couple of years, which we've had some of those, they're making 2 or 3 times return on their money in just a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely lots of great ways to invest in. I mean, that's the beauty of real estate investing, right? There's a strategy for really everyone's risk tolerance or experience level. You were flipping, you did commercial, you did private lending, you did self-storage. So you can find a strategy that matches your comfort level, your time frame, If you don't have the time to invest, if you have the money, you can invest passively, right? If you have time and little money, you can, run it out, you can wholesale, you can do some flip projects. There are lots of different strategies. And that's the beauty of investing in real estate is you can start wherever you're at and then scale and grow from there. You talked about investing passively. Um, I love the strategy. And if I could go back, I did some flip projects. My flips did not go as well as your flip project, and for a lot of different reasons. But one of the main reasons is because I was working a full time job and had small children. My wife was working a full time job, and we just didn't have the time and understand how kind of the construction and flipping landscape really worked. If I could go back to that time, instead of investing in flips, I would have invested as an LP. I didn't have as much liquid capital, but I had enough to invest as an LP, knowing that my real goal was to invest in multifamily on the active side. As you invest as an LP, what tips, strategy, or advice would you give to our listeners?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me is confidence in who I'm investing with. And it's trust, right? I mean, that's what all the business is the people in it and how well do you trust the people. So I look at obviously a lot of opportunities, as do you. But I'm looking for operators who have done this multiple times, lots of times, and they've had success, and they have people that they've worked with, other LPs that they've worked with in the past who have had a good result. Not only a good return, but also a good relationship through the process. And so, whether it be a multifamily or self-storage or a fund, I want to know the people that I'm investing with, or I want to at least know that I can trust them because I've watched their success over the years, or I know people who have invested in their deals and they've done well. So that's really the biggest factor for me. Certainly we do our due diligence and we do all of our underwriting. I have found, oftentimes you hear about deals that are whatever crazy returns, 30, 40% returns. 99.999% of the time, they are too good to be true for a reason. They're a shot in the wind. And so I say it's better just to take your money and go put it on red or black at the roulette wheel and then to invest in some of those. But most of them, they come through friends that we've known for a long time. My partner that I brought in on my self-storage deal, he's done 60 something self-storage facilities in the past. And so I've known him for 10 years. I had the property and had his own and got everything taken care of. But then I brought him in as a partner because he had so much experience. So really just, trust in the people, doing your due diligence. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I think the other thing too is don't get too emotionally wrapped up in any specific deal. There's always another investment opportunity. There's always another deal that's going to come along. So don't get so wound up or emotionally tied to one particular deal that you make a poor decision. One of the cliches that I like to say, or one of the things that I always tell people, the only thing worse than not finding a deal is finding a bad deal.
That's great stuff, Brandon. I mean, you talk about the people, and I just think that's so critical. You want to find the right group, the right operator, the right sponsor to invest with. That's going to solve 90% of it. Yeah, you want to underwrite it. Yes, you want to be in a good market. Yes, you understand the business plan, all those things. But if you find the right operator, they have already handled all of those things, right? Like that's what you're banking on, is that they know how to identify market dynamics, a great business plan for that particular property, and they have the experience and track record to execute on that business plan. Doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect and flawless, but
right.
I would definitely bet on the right operator more so than a deal that you just love because it looks great if that operator isn't proven. So absolutely love that. If you want to learn more about some of the questions you should be asking before investing in a deal, we have a free guide available on our website. It's 7 questions you must ask before investing in apartments. You can go to casmoncapital.com/7 questions to download that guide. Hey, so as we kind of transition here, as you have scaled your portfolio, you now have tapped into multiple asset classes from private lending, self-storage, multifamily, flipping, and more. Where do you see opportunities over the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned over the last 20 something years is that you never know exactly what's going to happen. There's predictions from everybody about, oh, well, this is changing and this is how it will affect the real estate market. But at the end of the day, none of us know exactly how the real estate market is going to change. I mean, we can look at, if interest rates go down, this is probably going to happen. If they go up, this is probably going to happen. But I think what all of us have learned over the last couple of years is that nobody knows for sure. But I do think looking at asset classes that have had a history of success is key. And for me, multifamily and self-storage, multifamily took a little dip a few years ago. Most recently, self-storage took a little dip as well. But if you look historically over all the different asset classes, both of those have performed pretty well, outperformed other asset classes. So I think looking back historically to see, what has performed well over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I think the other thing too, for me is try to have a long-term view, a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year view. And that doesn't mean that if you're investing money in a syndication, you're going to expect not to get it back for 10 or 15 or 20 years. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you're thinking about your investment strategy, don't think about it from a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year situation. Think about it from a 10-year or 15-year. What does this look like 10 years, 15 years down the road? Because most real estate, if you are able to hold it for 10 to 15 years, is going to go up in value. However, if you have a short-term vision, a short-term view, like, okay, I want to put this money in, I'm going to try to double my money in a year, you get into trouble, number one, because that's a crazy return. And you don't know what the market's going to do in the next 18 months, 12 to 18 months. So I think having a longer term view and saying, okay, I'm going to invest this money in this syndication. Yes, it may be a 3-year investment or a 2-year, 4-year investment. However, it's more stable because it's a longer period of time. We're not going to have to worry about the fluctuations in values over the next 12 to 18 months. And then again, and laying out your overall investment strategy over a longer period of time. Where do I want to be in 10 years or 15 years? And then let's work backwards from that and come up with a game plan for what we're going to invest in now. And, how long are we going to have that money tied up and what that looks like going forward. And again, I think people get in trouble when they try to make everything they can make in, like I'm going to double my money or triple my money in 1 year. That's not a good investment strategy. And it rarely ever works. And if it does, a lot of times people end up in jail. So try to have a longer term vision, just a steady long-term vision.
Yeah, my number one rule of investing is actually the number 0 rule. It's not even number 1. It's like number 0. Like before you even think about investing is don't do anything that can wind you in prison. So stay out of jail with your investments, stay above board and go from there. Hey, great stuff, Brandon. For our listeners who want to reach out, learn more about you and your business, what's the best way to reach out?
Probably the best way is my email, which is Brandon@theflipgenius, which is you can see on the sign here. So it's BRANDON @theflipgenius. On our website, my email address is on there. I also have a Calendly link where someone can schedule a call with me if they want to talk. So, I still answer emails and talk on the phone to people all the time. So happy to help, answer any questions I can, help in any way that I can.
Brandon at theflipgenius.com. Go ahead and send him an email, learn more about what he and his team are up to. Hey, listen, if you're getting some great value from this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And more importantly, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody who you think would enjoy this episode. Right now, we're going to transition and go to our round of insights. When you think you found a great deal, asking the right questions could be the difference in finding a stud or a dud. Listen, we've put together a new guide to help you out. It's called 7 Questions You Must Ask Before Investing in Apartments. Now, in this guide, you're going to learn how to uncover red flags, quickly identify underwriting risk, vet sponsors and team members, and confirm key assumptions. Now, this is a guide that's going to help you be a better investor, whether you're an active investor or you're a passive investor looking to partner with other operators. Asking better questions is the key to identifying great opportunities. So download this free guide. Go to our website, casmoncapital.com/7 questions. That's the number 7 questions. And you can access this free guide today. To make it easy on you, though, we've put a link in our show notes. So you go to our show notes, you can click that link and access the guide right now. This guide's going to help you make better investment choices, asking the right questions to build your portfolio. So be sure to download it today. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Oh, John, we could spend a whole another hour on failures. I think failures that set us up for success. I think making some mistakes early on that we were trying to do too much too fast. And so like we were just talking about with investing, we listened to the wrong people. We gave them money. We didn't know them that well. We invested in some stuff some houses that were supposed to have great returns, and it didn't pan out. So that's how we learn, from our mistakes. We failed because we didn't know those things. We had never experienced those things before, so we didn't know any better. We did them, and we learned by losing money, investing in the wrong people and the wrong deals. So that was definitely something we failed at that we learned and grew from.
Give me a digital or mobile piece of technology that our listeners should be checking out.
Can I just say AI in general?
Give me a specific AI, because everyone's going to go to ChatGPT if you just say
yeah.
Which is fine too, but yeah.
I use ChatGPT every day. I think CRM is huge, like I mentioned before. As you're scaling your business, we use a lot of call tracking software. InvestNext is a great portal. I'm not sure if you use InvestNext with your syndications and stuff, but we use InvestNext a lot, which is a great software tool. There's so many of them, but again, when I started, I didn't have all those. I learned them over the years, but there's definitely some great tools out there now.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
One of my best friends, John Ritchie, wrote a book called Courageous that I have given to a bunch of people recently.
Courageous by John Ritchie. Sounds great. All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Well, first thing, I get up in the morning and I read, have time for prayer and reading scripture, the Bible. And then, so I think that's the most important thing for me personally, is it keeps me focused. It doesn't necessarily change the circumstances of the day, but it changes how I react to the circumstances of the day. So that's the most important thing. And then I think professionally is just writing down goals, setting goals. My wife and I, at the end of every year, we look back at our goals from the previous year. What did we achieve? Were we successful at those? If not, do we want to implement them in the following year, or do we want to change them? And then we have another meeting where we set the goals for the new year. So having goals, creating goals each year, and we do a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year goal. And then keeping it somewhere where I can see it on a daily basis, whether it's on my wall, right in front of me on a whiteboard, but having those goals visible so I can see them on a regular basis.
Give me your number one insight for scaling in commercial real estate.
Finding people who are already successful is the most important thing. I'm not a huge fan of partnering in like, hey, let's form a company and be partners in everything we do going forward for the rest of our lives. But I'm a huge fan of finding someone who's been there and done it and joining them in what they're doing. So I kind of think of it as like a project partnership, like we're doing with my self-storage deal, where I mentioned I brought the guy in who I'd had a long-term relationship with. We're partners on that project, but he has other projects going on and I have other projects going on. So finding someone who's been there and done it, I'm either going to pay, I call it the dumb tax, the stupid tax. If I've never done something before or I'm not an expert in it, I'm either going to lose money by making mistakes and because I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm going to partner with someone and maybe give up some equity or give up a little bit of the return on the end, but I have their expertise coming in and teaching me how to do it. So I'd rather partner with someone who's done it and knows what they're doing than to have to try to do it myself and make mistakes on my own.
I love it. Hey, Brandon, where are you located?
Just outside of Atlanta, north of Atlanta, about 30 minutes.
Just outside of Atlanta. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, we're big seafood fans, my wife and I, but there's not a lot of great seafood in Atlanta. So I'd probably have to say Moxie Burger. It's a kind of a custom hamburger place here in Marietta. Moxie Burger.
Moxie Burger it is. Well, Brandon, I enjoyed our conversation today. You talked about kind of your background, you and your wife getting started, both having full-time jobs, making a commitment and having that clear vision of what you wanted to create, which led you into flipping. That first house was successful enough for you to do it again, learn some lessons along the way, but got a mentor, really learned how to implement some systems and some marketing to help you grow and scale. At the high point, you were doing $20 million in gross revenue, doing 100 flips a year. And from there, you decided to start to expand into other asset classes, to get more generational wealth, to take advantage of some of the tax perks there, and really build out and round out your portfolio. I appreciate all the tips you share with our listeners today, specifically on aligning yourself with partners and mentors and people who have that experience and knowledge to help guide you along the way. Again, for folks that want to learn more, they can reach out to Brandon His email is brandon@theflipgenius.com. Brandon, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.